And once again, I want to say greetings to each and every one of you, Aquaba. Welcome. Welcome to another round of the Conscious Roster Report here on LIB Radio, LIB TV, and livinginblack.com. My name is Keedy Owadu, aka The Conscious Roster. Weekday mornings, you and I get together live. We commit you from 9 a.m. Pacific Time, that's 12 noon Eastern Time, 5 p.m. GMT, and 8 p.m. East Africa Time. We get together with you and we deal with culture, consciousness, historical perspectives, entertainment, economics, education, health, labor, law, politics, religion, family, conflict, future studies, all areas of human interactivity and development. Today's date is Sunday, the 28th of September, 2025 in the Gregorian calendar, Western calendar. This corresponds to the year 6265 in the Kemetic calendar, to which we have realigned our cultural clock. Welcome to the 7th millennium. You have found your family in a peaceful place here on LIB Radio, LIB TV, here on livinginblack.com. What a joy, what a joy, what a pleasure it is to be with you today. And let me bring in our listening or our broadcasters for today. First of all, I have in the house Brother Duwara. Here, give me a second. And Brother Duwara, I have you in the house. Aquaba, welcome. How are you today, my Brother Duwara?
Thank you, Baba. I am doing quite well. Shikamoni to you and Ubuntu Ma'a to our global LIB radio family.
All right, all right. It's great to have you with us. Now, I think Baba Junius, bear with me, my brain is full of stuff. Did he tell us last week he was not going to be with us this week?
No, I believe he should be with us.
Okay.
Unless there was a private communication.
There was no private communication, and you would know. Thank you for having your mind intact, having your memory intact. My brain has been so filled with stuff. In fact, as we speak, I do see Baba Junius has joined us in the house today. But welcome, Baba Junius. I hope you are in beautiful spirits today.
I am. Thanks for the invitation. Glad to be here.
It's great to have you with us today. The mastermind is live and intact. We are all together. First of all, we do have to address the passing of two significant personalities in our Black African, Pan-African world lexicon. From the island of Cuba, we acknowledge the ascendance of Assata Shakur. She has been a Black freedom fighter nearly all of her life. And she immigrated as forced out of the country because of the interaction with the FBI. In fact, the FBI had put her on the 10 most wanted list as a member of the Black Liberation Army. Would either of you care to share any words about Assata Shakur?
I wasn't aware that she'd made transition, but as you said, she was a seminal figure in the Black consciousness movement, Black liberation struggle here in the United States. She maintained international recognition and brought international attention to the cause of Black people in the 60s, 70s. And like you said, she was hounded relentlessly by the FBI and the U.S. government, and she was able to seek refuge in Cuba. So it's somewhat sad to hear that she's passed, and I say not because all of us make transition, but from my perspective, I don't see her spirit being replaced by too many people here in this country in terms of struggle.
Very good. Brother Duara, do you have any reflections you want to share on Assata Shakur?
Absolutely. First, I would like to say all praises due unto her for making her ancestral transition at the age of 78 years young. And she died approximately 1:15 p.m. on the 25th of this month. I read Assata Shakur's biography first in college as an undergraduate. And after that, uh, I really got exposed to the depth of her, what I would call intellectual poeticism. She was
Mm.
a profound and deep thinker, um, and often talked about throughout the course of her life, even in exile in Cuba. She talked about current events and issues that our people continued to go through throughout the years. She was definitely expressively communicative about the grievances of Hurricane Katrina and its aftermath. Um, and I have some very powerful quotes that unfortunately I don't have pulled up in front of me right now. Perhaps I can grab a book or two off the shelf. But just a wonderful elder, who never stopped fighting, and who, despite all the atrocities that she had been through, including being the only woman kept in an all male prison, in the
Mm.
basement of an all male prison, and having been raped several times by prison guards and whatnot. I urge everyone to pick up her book and to read her very compelling story. And then also, I just want to say, because I've seen so much hate online, it really goes to show you the Uruguayan mindset when you just have so many people praising for the death of someone. It's disgusting, and quite frankly, uh, her law team had maintained her innocence throughout the years, and the trajectory of the bullet that entered somewhere around her clavicle or her armpit was proven to render her impossible to be able to have shot a firearm, uh, ending in the death of a state trooper. And so she was cleared of that, from my understanding. And yeah, we mourn a great elder today on this program, Ashe.
I say, yo. And for me, Asada Shakur, who was the godmother of Tupac Shakur, and no doubt one of the primary inspirations in Tupac's pro-black revolutionary ideology that he was able to bring to the younger generations. Asada Shakur stands as an ideal icon for those of us who would take a black liberation stance at this particular time. She was a beautiful person inside and outside. She was inspiring, as you say, her poetry and her words, her elocution was absolutely superb. Asada Shakur just stands as a true 360-degree champion in my eyes. I don't know if anyone will be able to step in and take that place that she took, because her life was absolutely undeniably unique. But I say, as an inspiration to the generation, all of us, to some extent, are obligated to pick up the flag. Don't let that flag rest in the dust on the ground, and carry it through for another generation. For me, it was absolutely an honor to have shared the generation with Asada Shakur.
They,
We have
she,
a,
sorry,
we have a, yeah, go ahead, please do.
I was just gonna say she is perhaps our best example of resilience.
Mm-hmm. That's right. And we've known warrior queens in other cultures and other generations and other lands. We
Ashe.
have Nani of the Maroons. We have uh,
Nana Ya
Queen
Santua.
Nzinga, Ya Santawa of Ghana, Queen Nzinga of Angola, and so many others. But there will be none from this land quite like Asada Shakur. So we raise her as our champion, our knight in shining armor. And that's a beautiful, beautiful thing. A couple of comments have come in, and we welcome those of you who are listening today on our various streaming services. If you're on Rumble, you can drop a like or hit the note or drop just a brief note of what you thought about Asada Shakur. I do see Nguvu is in the house. Sawabona, peace and blessings to all of you. Ed L. Mack is in the house. Grand rising to the Masterminds LIB radio family. And for Africa One checking in from the UK. Hotep Mastermind panel and global LIB family. Willing the legacy of beloved Asada Shakur ignites a generation to revive the revolutionary spirit of this esteemed warrior queen. And I think that is wonderful, wonderful, wonderful tribute. Thank you so much. And I will say this much. I'm just a little bit lost for words. There have been tributes to Asada Shakur that have been published, and I did put up a tribute on my page for which many, many dozens of people have signed in and said a word or three or four on my Facebook page. So do find links from YouTube and other places where you can find her voice, her words. It's not so easy to find Asada Shakur because after she did go to Cuba, she did keep a somewhat low profile. But nonetheless, she was spectacular right up to the transition and will be spectacular as an ancestor. May her heart be judged as light as a feather on the scales of Ma'at, and may her journey through the underworld into the hall of Aminta, the realm of the great ancestors, may it be sweet and swift. Ashe.
Ashe.
Another ancestor that I wish to acknowledge right now, and I'm going to put his picture up onto the screen on our program today. Baba Heru, which Baba Heru, his name is actually a little bit longer than I'll get that name in just a second as I pull up the link. Baba Heru, the Ankh-man of New York, made his transition I don't know the exact date of his transition, but I just got the notice just this morning. Were either of you, Dwara, or Brother Baba Junius, were you aware of Baba Haru's presence?
No, I probably am familiar. Where was he associated with Queen Afua at all?
At one time, I think it was a common law marriage that they shared. I don't think they did the formal Western, licensed marriage, but he was the betrothed of Queen Afua for some time. Yes.
Yeah, I'm vaguely familiar with him.
Mm-hmm. Brother Dwara? Brother Dwara, did you? Oh, he's off the stage. Let me add him to the stage. I'm sorry. I have you back on, Brother Dwara. Sorry about that.
No, absolutely. No worries. I was definitely familiar with Baba Haru, and just a very wise elder, and sad to know of his transition. All praises due to his name as well, I'll say.
Yeah, I had the opportunity to meet Baba Haru. I think it was a time when I was traveling into New York about every 6 months or so. And during one of those times, I met Baba Haru, and I didn't get a chance to spend much time with him, I will admit, but he had a beautiful Ankh studio. And when you saw Baba Haru, he always carried around the large Ankh he carried in his right hand, and it was very heavy. It was not only a symbol of peace and prosperity and the laws of Ma'at, but it also served as a weapon, as he was a Mantu warrior. And so, of course, he never had to use that weapon. But Baba Haru had a bit of a not intimidating presence, but he was powerful. You saw power in this man. And it was really, really such a joy to be around him. And he was always decked out to a very great degree in his Kemetian garb. And so he would be in the robes, the scarves, the hats. He'd have the ankh, all kind of jewelry. He was a master jeweler himself, and so he made the ankhs. And to be able to get one of those large ankhs from Baba Heru was considered to be really a very rare prize. I remember I hung around Precise Science for some time, and I know Brother had one of the ankhs from Baba Heru, and it was just really beautiful. But I didn't get a chance to know him so well. I wish I had known him better, but I did get the opportunity to be in his presence for at least one day in my life, and he was a very powerful man.
I had the opportunity to, and the distinct pleasure to be honored by Queen Afua back in the early 2000s, I guess. I went up to Brooklyn to their headquarters, and they had several buildings on that block. You could see the influence that they had in the neighborhood, and you could, just to follow up on what you were saying, I received a small but Dr. Africa received one of the kind that you have in the picture. And I said something, say, hey, how come I can't get one of those? She said, well, you'd have to do a whole lot more work to get one of those.
Well, that is great expectations of you from our great ancestors, that you have to step up to that, and that is a challenge for all of us. So at least you were invited and honored. Of course, I've known Queen Afua over many years, and she is absolutely delightful human being, and she's forever young. So may we wish longevity on Queen Afua. Any other thoughts you want to share as we say greetings, as we say send this ancestor on his journey into the Hall of Amenta?
Like you said, may his journey be swift and tranquil. May his heart be judged on the scale of Ma'at, as light as a feather. And may his legacy and traditions flourish here in this hellhole, because we definitely need that type of courage, the same type of courage that Assata Shakur demonstrated. We definitely need that boldness and that assuredness, that self-assuredness, that confidence that they both radiate in the midst of harsh travail.
Shay. And I'm going to post up a link. There are a number of wonderful videos on Baba Heru that do exist to this day, and we're very grateful to have them. But there was one particular one where a young man is introducing his teenage son to to Baba Heru, and so they travel to New York to the studios, and they go to the studios where the Ankh studios were located. And it was just an absolutely wonderful conversation with Baba Heru. And so, yes, we send him on his way. May your heart be judged as light as a feather, Baba Heru. There are a number of things on the table we could talk about today. A couple of comments have come in. Brother Shabaka, greetings, Mastermind panel and LIB family. High respect to Queen Mother Assata Shakur, and condolences to her family and close friends. And there is also a comment from Brother Juma. He says, good morning. I hope we can talk more about the Western Cape movement to succeed from the rest of Africa, of South Africa. I have been following that, but I don't know how seriously I want to take that. So maybe either one of you would want to comment on what you're seeing there.
I'm not that familiar with it. Queen Kashiba has been on top of this for quite some time, and she always brings it to our attention. Evidently, it is a viable movement, and when we talked about it several months ago, when she first brought it to our attention, there seems to be great support, not only for the whites there, but some other outside Europeans or people of European descent for making that a reality.
Mm-hmm. Brother Dwara, any thoughts?
Yeah, my only thought is that we have to ask ourselves, and I do not have the answer to this right now. We have to ask ourselves if further fragmentation is a good thing, or is going to make us more vulnerable.
Yeah. Further fragmentation, of course, the cessation of that group, the Western Cape, is cessation from Africa of the whites. And so let me just ask you to further develop that idea. Um, the cessation of the whites, is that going to be disruptive to us?
My apologies. I was under the impression that this was another all black nation state that was trying to secede and create their own nation. But in that case, yeah, I have something just in my gut that feels wrong to have an all white state on the continent of Africa. That seems like that could potentially manifest into something more nefarious and sinister, and even just on a spiritual level. I'm disgusted by the fact that invaders can come and then have their own unique and separate autonomous state that doesn't that just doesn't vibe well with me personally.
Mm-hmm. I get the notices from Queen Mother Kusheba, and you're right, Baba Jr., she has been on top of this. However, I don't see that the separation of three townships, or three towns really, in that Western Cape region, I don't see it as having enough momentum to call it a nation. If every white in South Africa moved to that area, it would only have a population of, I think the entire white population of South Africa is about 9% of the nation or so, and that's about 60 million people. So 1/11 of 60 million people is a pretty small nation. It would be equivalent to probably, well, actually even smaller than Israel.
Well, look at all the chaos that Israel is creating. So, I mean, if that is an example, then it's something we should be concerned about.
Mm-hmm. Well, but Israel is being rejected by every nation on the planet. I do agree that the small nation of Western Cape, or whatever they would call it, might be an Afrikaner name. That would be could be a disruptive factor, but it would be, just like apartheid, rejected by virtually every nation on the planet. So where is the basis there for creating a nation? If they wanted to have their own separate culture or so, well, in those three towns, they have that now. I don't know whether they'll be able to do self-defense, such as Israel, whether they'll be able to generate their own electricity. I do not know that they will be self-sufficient without the Africans, of which overwhelm them 9 or 11, was it 9%? 11 to 1. So I have not necessarily gotten excited about this proposed state there. Secondly, if you can recall, Donald Trump raised this situation of quote unquote genocide against the whites there in South Africa. You recall that happened,
Right.
what, 4 months or so ago?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And it went nowhere.
Yeah, I was just
A
about to
number,
say.
a number of the whites did come here, but now after a few months of being in America, I hear on YouTube, which is not necessarily responsible for telling the truth to anyone, I hear a bunch of them want to go back to South Africa.
Well, just to touch on some of your points, remember the Israelis, they do have generate some of their own technology and some of their own uh, means of sustenance, but for the most part, they are sustained by the United States. They're sustained by a lot of European nations that support them. And my take on what is happening is that will probably be what happens to, I think they're calling it Cape Republic or Cape Independence. They will get outside support. Uh, you know, other Europeans have no problem supplying weapons to their own, particularly if they view them as an enclave surrounded by Africans. So they'll get the weaponry. They'll get support, even if it's not through official channel, because, like you just said, there are apartheid, and most of these European nations at some point have engaged in apartheid, particularly the United States, or some form of ethnic and racial oppression, meaning
Mm-hmm.
imperialism, colonialism. So that's part of the Urugu ethos in their mindset.
Now, my question would be, how much worry do we have available for this possible secession of a enclave that, according to Juma, he says the Afrikaans already have, and I call them the Boers, which sounds like a wild pig to me. The Boers already have two other all-white cities where blacks cannot live. Is it that blacks cannot live there, or do not want to live in a place where you're just surrounded by, you're hated? I did see, was it Wode Maya? Somebody that we trust on the internet, on the YouTube, it was either Wode Maya or Julius Mulema or somebody, Zach Makosa, one of them went to that area and took a tour of that area and interviewed some of the families that were there. And the families did not seem to be so hostile. They just wanted to live amongst themselves. Personally, I don't disagree with that point. I am the proposer of Kujichagulia villages, which is almost the exact same thing. Only it's not whites, it's African people. So, how much concern should we have about what is taking place in the Western Cape? And why, here's the other question, why are we as African people in America so concerned about a white secession movement in South Africa when we have to ask of ourselves, what have we done for South Africa lately?
Yeah, I have some, excuse me, I have some choice words. I think that it's very easy. I'm going to try to say this as politely as possible, and this is not against anyone in particular. This is about our people as a whole. I think it's very easy to be distracted by what other people are doing instead of focusing on what needs to be done by us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Junius, did you want to share any thoughts? I do see one couple of comments I'll share. Brother Juma, who brought this subject to today's table, says they control most of the wealth with access to European markets, the United States, and Israel. And also, he said most. They control most of the access, but they're not necessarily controlling it from the Western Cape secession areas. They're controlling it from Johannesburg, Cape Town, and the other major cities in South Africa.
Well, again, the interest would be the establishment of a white enclave there, and what that means, particularly when you look at what you calling the new scramble for Africa, that could
Mm-hmm.
very well be a launching pad or a hub where that could continue. And like I said, rest assured that the West is going to be supportive of them.
Mm-hmm. Well, now if the West is in support of them, I'm presuming their primary supporter would be the United States, as it is the primary backer of Israel. The question is, can the U.S. afford a second Israel? Because from my perspective, Israel is an anchor on the United States ankle as the United States is treading increasingly turbulent waters on the world scene. Personally, I don't think that the cessation of Western Cape region is in the best self-interest of the U.S. to associate with it. Although we do see Donald Trump did attempt to intervene and drag himself in there. But I think we can all see right now it was based upon the lie of the genocide. The whites in South Africa are suffering crime, but not even proportionally to the amount of crime that the blacks in South Africa. So it's really not a matter of white genocide. It is a matter of black poverty, which generates capital crime.
Well, you're absolutely right in the sense that Israel is an albatross around the neck of America,
Good
figuratively and
point.
literally.
Mm-hmm.
As an outgrowth of that, the influence of the Zionists, the Jewish lobby, is so profound that makes that, and that allows that to happen. The Boers or the South Africa, the Afrikaners don't have that kind of influence. So you're not going to see the intensity poured into that enclave that you do into Israel. But again, they will be sympathetic and give them some support. Certainly not the level of support that they give the Zionists.
Mm-hmm. A couple of comments. Juma writes, Orania is one. I guess it's one of the cities. I did see the name Orania somewhere, but this is all not necessarily registering. Queen Mother Kasiba, we cannot be naive on this topic. Just because you do not know about this does not mean it's not important. A separate state means trouble for the blacks in South Africa. The whites will have their own military pointed at the blacks. I respectfully disagree. I'll kind of leave it at that because I don't think, personally, I don't think this warrants nearly as much attention as the question, what are we as Africans in America, the most powerful potential of any blocks within any nation in the world?
Mm-hmm.
What are we doing and where are we doing it? Can we stop the whites in South Africa from seeding? I don't think so.
We're doing it on Amazon.
We're doing it on Amazon.
We're doing it at Walmart.
Yeah. And we are buying the diamonds. There's a chief source of income for the De Beers family and the Oppenheimer group and the others there that have the real power among the whites. And from my understanding, I have seen nothing coming from these real white power bloc in South Africa. I've seen them say nothing about genocide and nothing about this cessation movement. I'm not saying that they haven't said anything. It's just that I haven't seen it. And I respectfully, Queen Mother, I'm looking at South Africa every day. I was looking at South Africa just today, and I have a story I pulled up from South Africa. And actually, it was something entirely, completely different. The story I have pulled up, how a South African vineyard is making a better wine thanks to cattle and ducks. So it deals with a sort of permaculture that's happening there. and personally, it's called viticulture. That was one topic on South Africa that I wanted to talk about today. It has nothing to do with violence, hatred, genocide, what's it called, xenophobia. Has nothing to do with white versus black or black versus white. It has to do with me versus nature. Any thoughts, or should we move on?
Well, I think we're getting to the end where we're exhausting the conversation about it. Various people have their thoughts about it. It is something that we need to keep our eye on. Again, just to show how, from my perspective, how the Europeans will rally around each other and they will prioritize the amount of support they give. Like I said, they're not going to give this type of support that they give Israel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I do have a friend, a very good friend, who's well placed in South Africa. He got his doctorate at Howard University. And maybe I'll call him and see if I can get him on the program to give his perspective on this. His father, who is now gone on to the realm of the ancestors, was a member of the Pan-African PAC. What's that stand for? Pan-African. I can't remember what the PAC stands for right now. Bear with me. But his father was well-placed professor at major university there. And Shaba and I have maintained contact over many, many years, well over 15 or 20 years. So maybe I should get him on and ask him his opinion about what is taking place there. Or are there other higher priorities that he would think that you and I from the United States would be concerned about?
Is PAC Political Action Committee?
Yeah, Political Action Committee. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And that was one of the most powerful political groups in South Africa, behind the ANC and in Katha.
Right. Oh, shame.
And so Sister Kashiba is now kind of writing to me half kind of half in all caps. So she's disagreeing with my disconnect from this situation. I have no problem with that. We do want to share her words. She said the whites will have their own military pointed at the blacks. And let's not forget what happened when the South African Defense Forces, SADF, went up against the Africans and Cuba stepped in. We must never, ever forget the role of Cuba in standing up for the rights of African people around the world. All Africans are not passive. And Cuba defeated the South African Defense Forces at the Battle of Quito Carnaval, a place that will always stand out in our hearts as one of the most spectacular battles that we have fought against the whites.
Also, it wasn't just the South Africans, it was the US CIA and several other European backed mercenaries that were all part of that major battle.
That's right. That's right. And she says a couple more things. Israel has no minerals. The Western Cape has lots of minerals. The Western Cape is mineral rich, she says. They are not going to broadcast their intentions. And she says, why not interview Wode Mayo? And I would love to interview Wode Mayo. I reached out to him several times, and I have not yet received a positive response from him. And hopefully he will respond sometime, and we can get an interview with Wode Mayo. With Wode Mayo, from my understanding right now, his strategies have changed. He's not so much an ambassador as he was before. Like he was our modern day Runoko Rashidi. Now Wode Mayo is building a real estate empire over there. It's pretty impressive, very impressive. And but I could interview him about his real estate empire, and then talk about South Africa as well. He did put up a video. He visited the white enclave over there. But I don't know if Wode Mayo came away excited. And the PAC stands for Pan African Congress for Africa One. Thank you for sharing that. The Pan African Congress. And Professor Koapa was the professor who was a member of the PAC. His son Shashaba, who came to Howard University, and he got his doctorate. I think it was a, what was it a doctorate of? It was a doctorate of letters. I think it had to do with law, but I'm not positive on that. He and I talked about a lot of different things over a number of different years. He was a wonderful contributor to LIB Radio in the day, and I miss my brother Shashaba. So I'm going to see what I can do to bring him back on. Okay, so Brother Juma agrees, and we're going to move on. He said, yes, we should get someone with boots on the ground for further clarity. So we all do agree on that. We'll see who we can get. If I can't get Wode Maya, I know I will be able to get my brother Shaba on as soon as possible. Any other topics anybody wanted to talk about?
I wanted to talk about something that could, excuse me, brother.
Yeah, no problem, bro. No problem, brother.
I wanted to talk about something that impacts you directly and many of us. Google says it will restore channels it banned and deplatformed during the COVID psyop. That's my take on it.
Mm-hmm.
I had not heard that.
Yeah, and my point is that I refer people back to Event 201 in the recommendation section. Look at recommendation number 7 with the media, where they talked about controlling the flow of information, which was done to show that this PSYOP was planned well in advance. And Event 201 was one of numerous simulations and exercises building up to that. And so now we've seen major indications that these social platforms are admitting that they were censoring and suppressing people. You had Twitter, once Elon Musk purchased it, now you have Google. And so the things that we were saying that people would just poo-poo and say, that's not happening. Yes, it did. And now they're admitting it. Now they're offering to give the channels back, give people access to those channels.
That's the first time I've heard about that. That's a good thing. Will they also restore 2,000 or so videos that they deleted when I got banned from YouTube?
Right, exactly.
You know, if they wipe their servers of those videos, or if they wipe access to those videos but kind of kept them for themselves. But I have a second Google site that is up. It does not have the thousands of subscribers which allowed me to monetize it. In fact, I haven't been pushing this new YouTube or YouTube site. It only has 176 subscribers. The other one had 5,000 subscribers on it. And one more comment on the South Africa. Juma says, interview Rutendo Matinyarare. I don't know who that is. Does anybody recognize that name?
Vaguely sounds familiar, but not directly sure who that is. No.
Yeah, I'll have to look him up. And I asked him, who is this? And do you have a contact number? I'll be happy to interview anybody from the continent who's inside and who has access to large numbers of people. I'm most definitely interested in getting a hold of. And that would include Wode Maya I do love the brother, and I love his bride. I think they're a beautiful contribution to the next generation of leadership for Africa. I would love to have them on.
If I could panther back off of something that Baba Junius just brought to us, um, there was a Twitter post from WikiLeaks, and I'm reading this off of the Cryptagon news site. Israeli aligned billionaires seize TikTok in battle for U.S. narrative control. Now, I think it was last week we had brought up that Larry Ellison of the Oracle franchise, the technocratic franchise known as Oracle, his son was set to take over Skydance or Skyhorse and Paramount, and then was looking to acquire Warner Brothers as well. Well, this just came out this week that the new ownership of TikTok will be led by Larry Ellison himself. He is the largest individual donor to the IDF. And essentially, let's see here, Ellison, who made his fortune developing Oracle, a database system he originally built for the CIA, already controls CBS, Paramount, MTV, Comedy Central, Showtime, Nickelodeon, which makes shows for children, it's adding, as well as Channel 10 in Australia and Channel 5 in the UK. Ellison is also expected to finalize control over Warner Brothers Discovery, including CNN, HBO, and the Discovery Channel before the end of 2025. Now, this sale is being finalized for the complete ownership of TikTok. Now, I'm combining that with another article that I saw that said that 1 in 5 Americans claims to get their news from TikTok, from the TikTok social media platform. And
Wow.
the narrative about and against Israel, which is very pro-Palestinian, and Baba Junius can help me out if I'm off base here, is literally being said to be taken over by Larry Ellison in order to flip the narrative on Israel amongst Generation Z and Generation Alpha, who have been demonstratively pro-Palestinian, in part due to social media sites like TikTok. So that's a very interesting media takeover. And again, Baba Junius always reminds us that these people do not like competition.
Mm. They do not like open speech. They do not like free speech. They do not like you, Brother Dwara. They do not like me. So
I say,
it's already gone so far, too far. At a certain point, I'm suggesting we as Pan Africans, we need to pull back away from all of their media,
I say,
especially their entertainment media, and focus on what is our media doing. And Baba Juniors, you and I have documented the decline, the collapse of black media over the recent decades. Can it be revived, or should we just throw in our lot with another group and say, hey, we're all Israelis now?
mm,
Well, what Duar is bringing out is something that many people prophesied or predicted as part of the New World Order, where you will have monopoly control over everything. So you already have a situation where you had 5 conglomerates pretty much owning all the media, whether it's print, electronic, even social media. You have a select amount of companies that control all the food processing and all the food distribution. So this is part and parcel of the New World Order. This is part and parcel of the neo-feudal order that's coming, where you will have the power pyramid folks at the top, and then you'll have various gradations of their acolytes, their flunkies, the people who do their bidding, and then you have the masses of people, many who will be called due to the depopulation and also the COVID death rollout, that they have just backed off from suppressing that. So more and more information is coming out all the time about the excess mortality of being. They don't directly link it to the COVID shot, but anybody who knows anything about logic or critical thinking can see what the real deal is. So we are fast moving into a situation where a handful of people will control most of the thought and so-called consensus and reality of the vast majority. And one of the things, and I saw some similar articles to what Duar was talking about, one of the goals is to more mount a counterinsurgence against the pro-Palestinian or the anti-genocide forces that are depicting Israel as this pariah, monster, Satanist type state. So look for that whole situation to flip, and also to show you how regulatory capture is so penetrated and so thorough. Watch the regulatory agencies like the FCC and SEC approve all this stuff, which is really moving more and more to monopoly. It's against free trade. It's against open markets, against all of that stuff. But again, we see the hypocrisy and just the mendacity of the ruling class, the overlords, as they go about their agenda.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You make good points. A couple of comments have come in. Let me share these comments if you don't mind. Queen Mother asks, what about the recent speeches at the UN General Assembly? I think that's a very important topic. Do you think that Africa should quit the UN? They want a seat on the Security Council. Dr. Arikana and PLO Lumumba support this. Well, I don't think there's any African, Pan-African especially, who would not support the idea of the UN opening up a seat on the Security Council for the continent of Africa. But then again, you have to ask the question, why is France and Britain, why do they have a permanent seat on the Security Council, but not India? And so the configuration, I think there are several larger dialogues taking place that the UN General Assembly this year is bringing to the forefront. Number one, we see the declaration of the recognition of the state of Palestine has pretty much, it's pretty much a done deal at this point, despite the fact that on the ground in Gaza, it's still absolutely horrible, and Israel continues the genocide unabated. The rejection of Israel's position and Netanyahu as a world leader is very important. Trump's appearance at the UNGA was absolutely disgraceful and disgusting and an embarrassment to anyone who would be proud to call themselves a supporter of the matter there. But when it comes to the Pan-African issue, should we leave or should we attempt to assert a fair representation? That's the question Queen Mother Kashiba wants to know. I'm kind of in the middle on that. I don't think that the Europeans, the British, and the French are going to want to give up their privileged position, despite the fact that they had to give it up when they lost their empires. I don't think they're going to want to give up that privileged position on the Security Council. And then the other thing is, unless the UN is reformed, a single veto from mostly the United States is holding back progress from the whole world. Who wants to be a part of anything like that?
Well, the question is, her question is, should Africans leave? That's a valid question. I think that they should think long and hard on it. Number one, because from my perspective, the United Nations no longer pretends that it's not part of the New World Order agenda. When you look at the World Health Organization, you look at some of the other agencies within the United Nations, you can see a concerted effort toward globalization and globalism.
Mm-hmm.
And like you pointed out, Keely, you had the remnants of the major European powers, France, United States, and Britain. And they brought in China and Russia to be permanent members of the Security Council, and they have veto power over everything else. So that's an imbalance, and it totally, with the exception of China, if you want to include them in the global south, totally ignored.
Yeah,
So,
and four of those five permanent members are warmongers.
right. And so I agree with that. And then when you look at all the other systems that they set up, the International Criminal Court and some of these other courts who use their influence and what little power they have to always beat down on Africans. But anytime Africans raise any issues that are germane to what's going on with them and any grievances they may have, it's always shunted to the side.
That's right.
So I agree. I think we should focus on our development, particularly as these new game theory type movements are unraveling as we speak.
Yeah. Queen Mother Kashiba did ask a question of you, Brother Dwar. Mr. D, where are you getting your information on TikTok from? What sources are you using?
For the TikTok article, in terms of, well, the first one I mentioned was Cryptagon. And that's via WikiLeaks. So they had a Twitter. I'll put the link up. I'll put both links up. The WikiLeaks one is a Twitter article. Let me just put this in the private chat because I don't have access to the comments. And then I'll put the direct Twitter link up from WikiLeaks. And then I'll have to go back and find the other one that says 1 in 5 Americans claims to get their news directly from TikTok. That was either on Slay or Zero Hedge, but I can look for that in the background.
So there is, if you type in to your search engine, ask the question, who is buying TikTok, you'll get an answer. It's Larry Ellison of Oracle, Michael Dell, and Rupert Murdoch. These are part of the consortium that are putting their money behind that. So the information is available now. It's probably not as thorough as we would like, but the information is available if you look for it and just keep digging, you'll find it.
All right. Going forward, I do see. I did put up a page I was looking at with South African news, and the point I was putting it up is that if we look across this news coming from South Africa, there's no focus at all from the perspective of the South Africans. There was no focus at all on the cessation movement there, and so South Africa has a lot of issues. They got a lot of challenges, problems that they have to fix. One thing we haven't heard from very recently is Julius Malema. Now, a year or so ago, it was talk that Julius Malema would become the prime minister in South Africa, most likely after Cyril Ramaphosa's term limit had approached. But we've not heard much at all about that topic. Is it possible that Julius Malema is gone quiet so that he could more easily get this position as prime minister? Or is it possible that he may not get that position because the PFF is still not as strong as the ANC in South Africa?
But the other thing that you might want to consider, see, South Africa is still in the crosshairs of the Zionists. They hold a very deep grudge against them for filing that charge of genocide in the International Criminal Court. And they were one of the few countries to take that type of action and to show and to document the atrocities that Israel was committing. This was early on. This was only after maybe a little over a year or so after the atrocities. So you have to look at South Africa from the standpoint, yes, they're part of BRICS. Yes, they're part of maybe the African Union, but look at what has happened. They have set themselves apart by being truly righteous to deal with the apartheid state of Israel, and there's going to be blowback for that. I'm not saying they're going to lose. I'm just saying that there is going to be blowback, and part of the blowback was that ambush and browbeat that Donald Trump did at the White House when their leader came to Washington.
Mm-hmm. Dwara, any thoughts?
No, I'm just kind of mystified at the fact that just on a spiritual level, because I think oftentimes we're very quick to talk about the material, the physical, the mental, the intellectual, the emotional, but just on a spiritual level, those that invaded, whose ancestors are now occupying portions of Azania, I just don't see from a spiritual perspective the righteousness in that. And secession or no secession, my contention is that the CIA and other foreign intelligence agencies and nations, including United Arab Emirates, France, England, MI6, CIA, like I mentioned, NSA, DIA, are doing way more damage than an enclave or a group of separatist Boers.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Another story that I think we could talk about is the FBI director, Kash Patel. He's getting clowned. He's getting clowned in House hearings. He made headlines. I think this is yesterday's headlines. Let me double check the date on this. Yeah, this is, I think, maybe today's headline. Quote, this from MSN, Microsoft Network News. That's false, quote unquote. Kash Patel stuns observers by correcting Trump on, quote, outlandish FBI claim. And the claim was that Trump made a statement on social media. It was just revealed that the FBI had secretly placed against all rules, regulations, protocols, and standards 274 FBI agents into the crowd just prior to and during the January 6th hoax, Trump wrote. This is different from what Director Christopher Wray stated over and over. That's right. As it turns out, FBI agents were at and in the January 6th protest, probably acting as agitators and insurrectionists, but certainly not as law enforcement officials, blah, 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 blah. That then led to Patel placing a story with Fox News in which the FBI leader contradicts the part about agents and insurrectionists. So is Kash Patel the next to be under the wrath of Donald Trump for making that check on what Trump said?
Well, Both of them, Patel and Bondi, are starting to become liabilities to Trump. It's just that he's able to shuffle the narrative and protect them. Back when it happened, when we still had the Falcon Forum, we said that. We said that it was bogus, that there was provocateurs that were parcel of the federal government. And I shared the story how my wife's cousin was a member of the Capitol Police, and he and several fellow officers were given a day off. Now, the whole Stop the Steal movement got the permits. They were coming. They knew there was going to be a major demonstration. There were threats of violence. Under that circumstances, you would not normally reduce your manpower. And he's a veteran officer there. You would not reduce your manpower on an event like that, just from a public safety standpoint. So all of that stuff that happened, and hold the brouhaha with the mayor pressuring for extra security and being turned down, shows you that it was all a scam, a hype, and a psyop. And of course, the Congress is in on it, partly because they're afraid they use the psyop to scare a lot of them, because once they breached security and they went looking for them, so a lot of them are afraid. So they don't look for them to do anything serious about it. Don't look for anybody to go to jail. But the truth is coming out.
All right. Let the truth come out, and let the whoever's being untruthful, hopefully, let them pay the full consequences of being that. I just
But
checking.
in this system, with the Aryan model of leadership, very rarely are the leaders held accountable. Very rarely. In the course of Eurasian and European history, very few leaders have felt the wrath or got the pitchforks and torches treatment. It just doesn't happen. Just like this whole thing with Comey being indicted, and this whole thing of John Bolton being indicted. I doubt seriously anything's going to come of it.
I'm seeing on the headlines right now there is a story breaking in the background in the United States. In the state of Michigan, there has been an apparent mass shooting and a fire at an LDS, Latter-day Saints church in Michigan. And this is a pretty significant story. I don't know much about it. Several people shot at Mormon church in Michigan. The story is coming from Independent News Network. Let me see if I can find it there. The I paper. I can't tell whether they're casualties, but the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the Mormons, in Grand Blanc, Michigan. This church has recently become center of attention, come up quite a bit because of the whole Charlie Kirk shooting assassination affair. This is getting kind of crazy, you guys. It's getting kind of crazy. The notion of a church shooting, the notion of targeting the LDS society. What is going on here? Can we bring any clarity, or is it too early to even talk on this?
Well, it's one more instance of the mental illness that's roiling in this country. We've been noticing it. We've been saying it. It was exacerbated by the COVID so-called remediations. They knew this was going to happen. But is there a connection with the Mormons? We don't know. That has to be waited on, and that whole scene to be played out. There's more and more talk about civil war, out and out violence between left and right, conservatives, liberals, progressives, et cetera, et cetera. What I do think is that there's a deliberate push to destabilize the country socially to give justification for the government to step in, the problem, reaction, solution. And we're already being prepared for that with the ICE raids and Trump sending federalized National Guards troops, deputized National Guards troops to cities that have black mayors and significant black population. So all of this is a psyop to prepare us for what's coming down, the lockdown. People are predicting this could be martial law. And it's also going to be in conjunction with the economic upheavals and collapses that you can see coming with the tariffs, with his moves with the Fed, and just the continuation of the casino type Ponzi schemes that have been going on, particularly since 2008, since that fallout from that. So we're looking at societal collapse. It's almost like we're looking at slow motion. We're seeing this train wreck coming in slow motion.
Yeah. I do see Brother Nguvu in the chat. I had not noticed it, but he did also point out there have been 2 more mass shootings within 24 hours. One in North Carolina and the other in Michigan. 3 dead in North Carolina, not sure about Michigan. And that was the one I just found independently, but Nguvu now informs us there were 2. Brother Dwara?
Yes, so I was going to just mention the North Carolina one. Very interesting in that apparently the suspect pulled up on a boat, opened fire from a boat into a harbor into a fish restaurant, a seafood restaurant, and then peeled off in the boat. It looks like they do have a suspect now that has been identified. Nigel Edge, age 39 years old, presents to definitely be a Caucasian male. Yeah, very interesting. I wholeheartedly agree with Baba Junius that things could continue to spiral out of hand very rapidly. I would say. I think that the decline of a society can happen slowly, but when it does happen, I think it can decline quite rapidly. And I think we're going to, as I think we said a couple of weeks ago, one of my predictions anyways is that we're going to continue to see this kind of this anarcho tyranny, this violence that is kind of unprecedented. If someone disagrees with somebody, there's a potential not for words but for bullets, for violence. If there's a political cause, or if there is a religion that someone disagrees with, then instead of words, it seems to be increasingly elevating to violence. Now, we also have to keep in mind that some of these might very well be false flag psyops in order to kind of foment this dystopian, ultra chaotic anarcho tyranny that could be used to basically make us feel helpless and hopeless. And we know that various government agencies have stated that is a psyop tactic. So I personally take each and every one of these things with a grain of salt. Yet I do think there will be an increase. And then we have the situation in Dallas too, where this young person opened fire from a prone sniper position onto an ICE facility, allegedly hoping to hit ICE agents, but ended up killing two detained immigrants or migrants.
Wow.
So yeah, this is and the other thing to be clear of too, last point, is that if you look at FBI briefings on a lot of this, they're very clear that many of these are kind of copycat type of situations. And so in this country, there has been created this subculture of who can be the video game villain. And I think that's something
Mm.
we really need to pay close attention to, because I think both of you Babas would agree that at the end of the day, this oftentimes does come down to culture. I mean, just the other day, walking down the street, I see this highly melanated brother with with an AC/DC shirt on, and there's a big skull on the shirt. And then I'm looking at I believe it was in Michigan or Minneapolis, where there was some sort of a brawl, and the brother there shows up to the shirt with a Megadeth T-shirt. And so I'm seeing this real time assimilation amongst uh, our younger people, which is that they're almost being brainwashed by this factory of horror movies and I'm not even sure what to call it. Horror movies and just
And the
violent rhetoric.
zombies and the
Yeah,
zombie movies, The Walking
exactly.
Dead.
I mean, that is like becoming our identity. Instead of Africa being part of our identity, we're seeing just this wholesale embrace of everything violent and horror themed that has just permeated U.S. pop culture. And then I was thinking the other day, before 1980, was any music that came out in any genre promoting violence? I know there was a lot of love songs. I know there was a lot of heartbreak. I know there was a lot of maybe reminiscing on life, but I can't recall of a violent song prior to 1980. A song
Well,
that, and please correct me if I'm wrong, you Babas clearly have a longer memory than I prior to 1980.
all right, but stop and think.
Mm.
There were stories, there were songs. Um, the Olympics had a song called Big Boy Pete. And there was some moral in that. Or Stagger Lee,
Mm-hmm.
Frankie and Johnny. So they talked about things that did happen in our community, but they were not promoting violence. There was a moralistic into it. I mean, Stagger Lee was shooting craps. They get into an argument. He gets killed. Frankie and Johnny, there was something like that. And Big Boy Pete, gets taken down by Bad Man Brown. These are just some of the things that are off the top. And those were in the 60s, early 50s and 60s.
Okay.
But they weren't promoting. It wasn't like gangster rap where they were promoting it. It was very moralistic because the bad guys, usually got the worst of the situation. Or it was tragic because one of them was a lover of this girl's boyfriend gets killed or beat up or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm. Yeah, good point. And good recollection, good memory, Baba Junior. As I do recall those songs as you mentioned them, but it did not occur to me to think about them. The one song that came to my mind was really about anti-violence, and it
Mm-hmm.
was "Strange Fruit" by Billie Holiday.
Mm-hmm.
I'll say.
Or even remember the rap collective, Self-Destruction. That was
That's right.
They put that out to try to curtail the ongoing beefs and things like that.
I would
So,
urge it. I'm sorry, Bob. I was just going to urge everyone to pick up rap hip hop in the New World Order, because really, Baba Kitty, you document that shift, um,
hmm
and I'm hard pressed to. I mean, yeah, I agree with you. There were a lot of songs of peaceful protest. There was a lot of
hmm
a lot of peacemaking songs. There was a lot of love making songs. There was a lot of heartbreak songs. But what we're seeing today is I mean, one brother was joking that 60 black people get killed in one song nowadays. You know what I mean? It, you know, and then these young
Yeah,
people, they have a term called demon time. I'm on demon time. I'm on demon time. That's kind of
that's
the
a 666 thugster, right?
that's just, yeah, exactly. That's something that young people, that is in the everyday vocabulary of younger people now. I'm on demon time, and that could mean
Wow.
one of
Yeah,
6 or 7 things, all negative, by the way.
yeah. In the book, Rap Hip Hop and the New World Order, I attempted to tie all of this chaos together with two main themes. Number one was the subtitle of the book, Planned Chaos in Youth Music Culture. And the other one was really the title of the first chapter of the book, Population Wars, Culture Wars. Linking what we are witnessing as cultural warfare is actually part of a strategy to wage war against wholesale populations and eliminate wholesale populations. On both of those themes, I stand by with no apologies. I think that the themes were absolutely right on time. So thank you for pointing out the book. Hopefully, people who haven't read Rap, Hip Hop, and the New World Order will be inspired by listening to you, Brother Dwara.
I hope so, because it's the only cutting edge research in book form, anyways, that I know of, that really lays the blueprint out for what happened with the corporate and intelligence agency capture and takeover of that beloved art form that we created, which I understand is in its purest form just an extension of the griot and the jalelu of West Africa.
Mm-hmm. I say, yo.
You're muted,
We're
brother.
doing the best we can here today on LIB Radio to give you insights into everything relevant to what is happening. And we do want you, our listening audience, to participate in it as well. You can give us a call, not give us a call. You can send your message through, post it up on our Rumble page, and you can post it up on our YouTube page, on my Facebook page. And we are also broadcasting and welcoming you in. If you are with us on You Now, let me say hi to Mazi Ahmed. Alter Ego is in the house, as well as Raymond 69 is in the house. Invited 347 fans to listen to this broadcast. So thank you all. Thank you all for being here. We do appreciate you being in the house.
Kitty,
Yes.
in addition to your book, Professor Griff was also on it, and prior to that, don't forget the great work of Del Jones, his Culture Bandits, and his whole thing, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, and also not so much on a deep intelligence service level, but Nelson George looked at the business side of it with his book, The Death of R&B.
That's right.
Precursor to how they took over the record industry and control of rap and hip hop.
That's right. We salute all of these journalists for their contributions. I will also want to say a salute to Stephen Ivory, who produced a number of videos for various online or various sites out there. He produced a video on who killed Tupac Shakur, and another one was the CIA involved in the death of Bob Marley, both of which were aired on VHS 1, and both of which he had called me, and I was able to make my contribution to Stephen Ivory's phenomenal documentary. So those are still available to be watched in case anybody wants to look them up and find them.
And then, if I could add 2 more into the mix, one is Hip Hop Hypocrisy by Coach Alfred Powell.
Shay.
And then also Hip Hop Decoded by the Black Dot. That one's going to be probably a little bit harder to find, but Those are two that I just pulled off my shelf.
Nice, nice, nice. Coach Powell. I miss Coach Powell. How is he doing? Is he still out here producing?
I believe the elder is. He re-released Hypocrisy and Message in a Bottle. I believe
Mm-hmm.
those are both available on Amazon. Not sure about a direct link to the books or to him for the books, but yes, he did. He did re-release those two. Um, so yeah,
All
I believe
righty.
believe he's still out here doing this thing. I hope so. Hope so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Queen Mother Kasiba writes, no love songs or music about romance and marriage. Yeah, you don't hear those
Yeah,
nowadays.
yeah.
And lastly, look up Kai Sinat, I Show Speed, and websites for young people. I have watched I Show Speed. I think he's just really racing and bragging, bragging about himself as he runs. He's a good runner. He's very fast, but he has been beaten several times. But he's a very graceful in his defeats. He ran against Lyles. What's his name? The world champion. You know what I'm talking about. The
From Jamaica.
sprinter. The sprinter from Jamaica, not from America. He's a current one of the current champions of the world.
I know
Lyles
you.
something.
I
Oh,
know who
okay.
you're talking about.
Yeah, I just can't think of his name right now. But he did erase him a couple of times, and Lyles laughed at him the whole time as he was, practically he whipped ISO Speed. But yeah, ISO Speed. I've never seen ISO Speed do anything relative to culture, politics, or anything like that. But he is popular on YouTube, so hopefully that means something to somebody.
Also, want to talk about the whole notion of love and romance in the record or popular culture. That basically was commercialized by Tin Pan Alley. I don't know if any of you are familiar with that. Those were
Mhm,
these publishing houses in New York
mhm.
who wrote songs and published them that were used in plays and things like that. And then when the recording industry came in, they got a lot of their material from them. And of course, you had the black influence of the blues. And, I done lost my woman, or sister saying I lost my man, or, whatever the topics were, the blues masters that were incorporated and expropriated into U.S. pop culture. But the whole notion
Mm-hmm.
of romance, Hollywood romance, love, and all that kind of stuff. When you stop and think about relationships, and the West denigrates um, so-called arranged marriages,
Mhm.
but in a sane society, you want to regulate who gets married. You don't want your daughter marrying the village idiot.
Right.
So even for us, and Africans had arranged marriages of sorts because they had rules in terms of who you could marry. Like you couldn't marry your cousin and all that kind of stuff. And that transferred when we got here, because if you remember, Keely, I'm sure you remember because you're around my generation. When you went somewhere and you introduced yourself, one of the first questions they asked you was, who are your people? Who's your people?
Mm-hmm.
They wanted to get some sense of who you were, whether they knew your people, whether you were related to them or whatever. So it was important because of trying to maintain some stability and familiarity with what was going on in the community.
And the extended family was also very
Oh,
important.
exactly. Very, very.
Very important. Because when you met someone that you like, you adore, and you thought you might want to integrate them into the family, you had to go and introduce them to the family.
Mhm.
And the family might like them, but then the father is going to want to know who your boo's father was, or your beau's father. And the mother wants to know who your beau's mother was, because they're going to have to co-grandparent
Mhm.
together with the grandchildren. And so nobody wants to be grandparenting with someone who they fundamentally disagree with. So the approval process for joining two families together was much more serious than what we see nowadays.
Mhm.
Nowadays, it seems like the two families aren't even joined together.
No, and then you also, so outside of those very important checks and balances, um, you also had numerous elders that the young couple could refer to if there was any type of an issue or a situation. And that is something that, man, is just missing amongst our people now. Everyone's independent. I contend that this is one of the only societies in history where it is seen as uh, unhip, uncool to be seen with your parents, right, as a young person, and that each generation, as I've mentioned before, each generation is almost encouraged wholesale to be different from the previous generation. You do not find that in traditional societies, especially not traditional African societies, where that's the whole point, is to become like your ancestors, to become like your grandparents and your parents, and to pass that line of continuation, that cultural continuity down. But in this culture, every generation is encouraged, in fact, to rebel from their parents, from their grandparents, from their ancestors in the name of modernity, innovation, progress, liberation, whatever.
Also,
Mm.
keep in mind in the 1950s, they introduced the concept of a generation gap, which is the
Mm-hmm.
very thing that you're talking about, Duara, where they said, well, there's going to be a separation and there's going to be a disconnect amongst the various generations. And
Mm,
this is why they promoted such diverse subcultures among the young people.
right, right.
Is there anything that we can do to challenge that, to change that? I have
Well,
three daughters, and I wish that my daughters were doing a better job from their part of maintaining contact with me and with their mother. I wish it were better, but I kind of have accepted that this new generation is got the challenges before them that we didn't have when we were growing up. I know in my father's latter years, I would call him not so much, but I would call him, and he would not call me. Now it seems like I call my daughters, but they don't call me.
Yeah, yeah.
well, keep in mind we lived through the subtle and the blatant assaults on the family,
Right.
That's right.
the nuclear as well as the extended family. So you
Hmm.
had government policies in terms of who could get aid to dependent children, or better known as welfare. You had the Catholic Church easing its stand on divorce, then various states and municipalities easing their stands on divorce, because it used to be hard, very hard to get a divorce. It was easy to get married, but hard to get a divorce. So all
Mm-hmm.
that has been pushed aside and centered aside, and now the family is under major assault because of those trends. Now we're into going into what, 3 and 4 generations of that. So
Mm.
their attack and assault on the nuclear family as well as the extended family is almost complete. Particularly
Yeah.
now, when you listen to Gen X people or whoever the generation behind them is, they say, "Well, I can't even afford to get married." That kind of stuff.
Yeah. And you see social media is promoting this same idea, but it's all subtly being fed, or is it all subtly being fed by a global population control regime, Brother Dwara?
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. Have either of you heard of Yuri Bezmenov?
I don't recognize the name.
So
Not
he
familiar.
he was a KGB defector, um, and I'm reading now from a book called The Deep State Encyclopedia, who prophesized modern America 39 years ago. The Soviet journalist and KGB propagandist Yuri Bezmenov, who defected to Canada in 1970, is well known for his ideas on ideological subversion. And then he further asserted that the Soviet Union had been subverting Western society from within using a strategy known as ideological subversion instead of employing military force. He described this process as being gradual and subtle, altering how people think and behave. And there's 4 stages to this, which I'll just quickly name the 4 stages without going into each one. First stage is demoralization, which we've noted with the switch and the impact of even just using music as an example. So demoralization. Stage 2 is destabilization. Stage 3 is crisis. And stage 4 is normalization. That's the 4th and final stage of ideological subversion, and is characterized by the establishment of new political, social, and economic system. This stage is designed to create a sense of acceptance and normalization of a new system amongst the population. I'm arguing especially amongst the young population, and to solidify external control over the society.
Wow. And he relocated to the West, to Canada, you say?
Correct. In 1970, defected to Canada, and I believe there's a couple of YouTube videos that I've seen with him speaking about this as well back then. Yuri Bezmenov.
Yeah, I just found him. I put up a link to him on Wikipedia as a reference for our people to know more about. And yeah, this is the first time I'm hearing about Yuri Bezmenov. He sounds to me like a Soviet Union version of what's the guy's name? He propagandist in America, the founder of modern day marketing.
Edward Bernays.
Edward Bernays, thank you. Sounds to me like a Soviet version of Edward Bernays.
Yep. And we'd be fools to think that Israel and China probably haven't already started similar journeys, especially with TikTok in China. You know, that was definitely in the beginning. You know, we'll remember that the people were very concerned that these kind of imitative short dances that all the teenage girls are doing now, you know, instead of reading. I also heard a statistic, interestingly, that I think it was like 20 years ago, only 10% of 18, it's either 3% or I think it was 10% of Chinese 18-year-old males were enrolled in college, and now it's like 73%. So other young people around the world, as you both so eloquently always remind us, are taking the books and the education seriously. Here, though, especially with the missing of that at least one entire academic school year with the COVID lockdowns, we're taking anime and pop culture and these foolish little silly dances seriously, but we are not taking our history, our original traditional culture, and education seriously.
Well, speaking of which, there's a quote from Yuri Bezmenov. Maybe it addresses just that. As I mentioned before, exposure to true information does not matter anymore. A person who is demoralized is unable to assess true information. The facts tell him nothing. Even if I shower him with information, with authentic proof, with documents and pictures, he will refuse to believe it. That's the tragedy of the situation of demoralization. Demoralization, the removal of morals, and these morals, of course, the way we're thinking, is removing that. That's pretty deep.
That's mind
That's
control,
pretty
is it
deep.
not?
Yeah,
That's
definitely.
mind control. That's like mind brainwashing. That's like wiping your brain of anything. And in the space, your brain wants to be occupied. So why not just put up a short video and watch people dance?
But keep in mind, there was a point the Chinese government was opposed to TikTok being used in their own country. So it blew up globally, but the Chinese government wasn't all that enamored with it as a medium. But
Mm-hmm.
they've used it, they've exported it around the world. And so now Trump has under some advice that said, okay, this is a threat to national security because the technology has certain negative aspects of it, not just content, but also in terms of being able to provide data and spying and things like that. So now, like Duara said, a whole another element is coming in, and they want to use that and expand those capabilities so that they will be able to surveil and monitor large segments of the population, particularly the younger people who just embrace that kind of stuff.
I mean,
Mm-hmm.
just type in TikTok and harming children and you'll get 20, 30, 40 articles on the detrimental effects. I believe I mentioned an article maybe several months ago that was very, very, very detailed in all the ways that TikTok ends up exposing children to child sexual material, pornography, illicit drug sales. And I mean, again, I have to go back to something that Baba Junius, you remind us of all the time. Their playbook is very thin. And one of their first military and religious colonial tactics is to remove the children from the parents. And the way it's being done in this modern sense is not through missionary schools, although that arguably is still going on as well. But now the missionary school is replaced by a social media platform, i.e., TikTok. And that is where parents have really little to no control over the brainwashing, the mind control, the social engineering of their child away from them and their beliefs.
Mm.
Now,
Good.
just following up on what Duara said, when you go up and you type in, say, TikTok damages human brains, look at all the stuff that comes up. And one of the things that the synchronicity during the week, like if I'm reading, I see a word or a term that I'm not familiar with, I'll write it down, look it up. So this week, the word was neuroplasticity.
Mm-hmm.
Neuroplasticity is the ability of the human brain to change in response to intrinsic or extrinsic stimuli. That's what TikTok is doing to our young people. And basically, younger people have a higher rate of neuroplasticity than older people. Older people have what I call psychosclerosis. They have a closed mind. They
Mm-hmm.
stuck in their attitudes and their values and their beliefs about the world. Where particularly younger folks who are the main targets of these people, by the way, they can easily come in and supplement using the theories that that gentleman that Resmanov that Duara talked about, and that's what they're using. This whole play on the ability of young people to adapt to stimuli, and these short videos that maintain and also, by the way, help shorten their attention span.
Mm-hmm.
are a major tool or a major weapon in their arsenal.
That's right. And
I,
from the perspective that I approach, that we are constantly and deliberately using plasticity to improve our brains, improve our perspective. You point out, Baba Junius, that it's being used against those of us who do not consciously use it for our own benefit.
Well, that's what happens when you're a mindless consumer,
Mm-hmm.
not only of material things, but of media content. And that's what we always say we need media literacy. We need to understand what's going on. Before it was television with the flickering pixels and all of that, and that had a hypnotic effect on us. And early on, they told us about how that was being used, how they were programming these subliminal messages via that, as well as the pictures. But the technology has improved so much now that it's down to a science where they know what they're doing and we don't.
Mm-hmm.
if
Yeah.
I could panther back off of both of you, I found the best article that I had brought up several months ago, and I put that in the private chat. Baba, if you could push that up into the comments, that'd be great. It's on afterbabble.com. And the article itself is TikTok is harming children at an industrial scale. This is co-written by John Haidt, who wrote a phenomenal book called, I believe it's called The Anxious Generation. Very, very well-researched book. I'll just quickly read the 5 clusters of harms that they specifically point to TikTok as producing. They say, just real quick, we organize the evidence into 5 clusters of harms. Cluster 1, addictive, compulsive, and problematic use. Cluster number 2, depression, anxiety, body dysmorphia, self-harm, and suicide. Cluster 3 is porn, violence, and drugs. Cluster 4 is sextortion, child sexual abuse material, also known as CSAM, and sexual exploitation. And number 5 is cluster number 5. TikTok knows about underage use and takes little action. And throughout this article, they refer to something called the Kentucky Brief. And that is where all the scientific and legal evidence is presented, very, very well outlined here in this article, to demonstrate how absolutely Isfetian and chaotic and confusing and tyrannical and just soulless children, the TikTok content is that children are directly exposed to, unmitigated.
Not only that, once it became a fad, it's just like Facebook was a fad. Facebook was designed to get us to put our business out so that the powers that shouldn't be can monitor us and see what we're thinking, what we're doing. TikTok is that, but it's also all the things that you talked about in terms of, particularly, number one, remember the number one issue is addictiveness.
Yes.
How addictive it is to these young people and how it is literally rewiring their brain.
Right. There's another article on... Oh, I'm sorry, Baba. Go ahead.
Well, I'm going to just say we have a few more minutes. We're going to begin to wrap it up. I do have to get away to another task here at the top of the hour. Go ahead. You got the floor.
There's another After Babel article called "Aren't You Lonely?" ? And then it says friendship has become another joyless thing to do on a screen. Man, that's poignant. And I heard a statistic just the other day, and I'll close with this. that young people look more into the eye of their camera than they do into the eyes of other human beings.
Wow.
And not only that, they interact with this etiquette with their device, with their interpersonal social skills are atrophying.
Yes.
So they really have no clue how to read people's body language, how to get the nuances about, okay, look at them in the eye, listen to what they say, so you can try to figure out, are they friend, foe, whatever. That all that stuff is gone because it's being done on a device. And this was one of the main concerns people had about the masking and the limited interpersonal contact during the COVID psyop.
These small things, I'll say, these small things chipping away at what it means to be a human. And to your point, Baba, if you can't even socialize properly, how do you find a wife? How do you make a child? How do you start a family? If you, and then on the on the flip side of that is, how many of these active shooters, how many of these active attackers, how many of these mass shooters are young people that are clearly improperly socialized? That is where you get into some deep stuff. Is my contention is that young people that have not been properly socialized are very are more susceptible to enacting violence against other human beings to which they feel no real deep or emotional connection. And that ties into hookup culture too, because from what a prominent psychologist told me, is it's the physical material intimacy is used in order to avoid the emotional intimacy. That's seen as a scary thing. That's seen as too much of a commitment. And so, young people, they knock boots. They're intimate physically, but then you're just ghosted and you move on to the next person. That's promiscuity, and that also is in Target Africa, that wonderful book that talks about these Western values being permeated on the continent, which we have mentioned several times.
Also add to that the whole notion of radicalization. That's a lot of these young people,
true,
in addition to getting caught up in MK Ultra,
yes,
which is a government thing, where they were targeted and selected and programmed individually. Now they're being induced into this using these devices. Particularly, when you consider the content that they're ingesting and consuming.
We're going to have to start to wrap things up. There are so many stories that we could be reporting on today. I'm grateful to have you brothers reporting with me on Sundays. Last week we had our largest broadcast ever, and I was surprised to see the numbers of people who listened to last week's broadcast. So the word is getting out. People are spreading the word. Of course, we do need people to step up and support LIB Radio and help us to do what we are doing. Apparently, we're doing it better and better as it's getting more well received from our listening audience. But I tell you though, compared to what our audience is getting from TikTok, from the increasing consolidation of mass media, etc., ours is barely a drop in a huge tub. Barely a drop. But we are doing better.
And we're doing the best we can with what we have, is what you always say, and that's all we can do. That's all is expected of us.
That's right.
As long as that drop of water keeps dripping, that will make an indentation in cement, in concrete, in stone.
That's right. At least it will make a stain on the tub.
Yeah, that lime scale. That lime scale, right?
Any final thoughts from you, Brother Dwara, as we wrap up today's show? You've been a wonderful contributor today.
Ashe, thank you, Babas. I appreciate you both very deeply and dearly. For today, I'll just say that the greatest weapon we have against our adversaries is our holistic health and well-being. Let us make ourselves formidable opponents by remaining healthy holistically. That's spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically. Ashe.
That's great. Where was that quote from?
Oh, that's humbly coming from yours truly, Baba.
All right. I can't wait to
Well
read
done.
the rest of that.
Yeah, well
Thank you.
That's
done.
pretty good. Well
Absolutely.
done.
Again,
Very well done.
thank you, Babas.
Baba
Appreciate you both.
Junius, Baba Junius, anything
My
else you want to contribute to
my
today's show?
closing, yeah, my closing is a follow up. Make sure you make some kind of contribution to LIB Radio. You see the crawl underneath. You see the prompt. You can make any donation to my Cash App. That's $Keedy Obi. The there's a website. I think it's called Citizen Reader Supported News. They make shameless plugs all the time, always begging for contributions. Keedy doesn't do that. We all know from our experience over 20 some years in being pioneers in internet broadcasting, that is
Mm-hmm.
a struggle. We've both seen the demise of fabulous radio stations, conscious radio
Mm-hmm.
stations. We don't want this to happen to LIB. So make a contribution. It could be a one-time contribution. It could be a sustaining contribution. It's important and it's an imperative because as we're seeing this pushback, the move to techno-fascism, techno-feudalism, we need our own media that is conscious and supportive of our community and helping us envision our best interests. That has been the
Mm-hmm.
history of LIB Radio.
That's right. And we are moving into the season, Baba Junius, where increasingly we have to compete for people's limited resources against Xmas
Mm.
and this unconscious consumerism that almost seems like a plague. That and there, if you're talking about developing vaccines, that's one. We need to develop a vaccine against unconscious consumerism in the name of Christmas. But yeah, we're going to be competing against Christmas, and I know from experience from many years back that this makes the donations to supporting independent black media much, much less, and it's going to get tough again. So you're going to hear us increasingly reaching out, doing the best we can. I'm going to close with the. I just wanted to bring up. I was going to bring this up as a topic of discussion. Anybody wants to respond to this? The Charlie Kirk Act is a proposed renaming of the Smith-Mundt Act, a Cold War era law originally passed in 1948 to govern U.S. government-funded broadcasting abroad, propaganda. After Kirk's assassination in September 25, supporters, including Senator Mike Lee, called for reinstating and renaming the new law in Kirk's honor. The old law, renamed in Kirk's honor, combating it would claiming it would combat domestic propaganda and media dishonesty. In actuality, this is being used now to justify many Cold War policies that were coming up. We do see a war, a battle for the soul of the Americans insofar as, do you support Israel? Do you support AIPAC? Do you support Zionism? Or are you an American Christian? And that question is on the table. I'm not even going to begin to answer that for anyone else other than myself. But we do need to be very careful because we are being ushered into something that's very dangerous. Anybody want to comment before I hit the button?
Before you close out, that's coming. It's not just former Cold War rhetoric and policy. Now it's going to be finely tuned to take in so-called hate speech, which will make it illegal to criticize Israel, make it illegal to be against certain government policies. So what we're seeing is the demise of free speech. And there's black people in this country that we've
Mm-hmm.
never had the blessings of full free speech. If you
That's
believe
right.
that, then think about David Walker or Ida B. Wells. What happened to them? Those are just some of the people, just two.
That's right. And Queen Mother Kashiba writes, she said, talking about bad videos for young people, Kai Sinat, I Show Speed, these websites have millions of subscribers and offer nothing for the young mind. These are black websites that have made a lot of money, and these websites also promote violent and stupid anti-intellectual themes. Thank you so much for your comments, Queen Mother Kashiba. And on that note, I think we have reached our end point for today's broadcast. I'm going to get out of here, get into the kitchen. I have a client coming by a little bit, and they are going to be eating healthy. I have this client I've been working with about a month now, and she is doing so well. She's been able to shed, I think close to 20 pounds, but better than that, her autoimmune disorders are turning off. She had numerous autoimmune disorders, and she's getting better, and she's looking a lot better. And so I encourage everybody out there, do what you can do for yourself, for your health. They always tell you on the plane, put your mask on first so that you can help everybody else around you who will need your help. I want to thank you, Brother Dwara. Thank you, Brother Baba Junius. I think the Falcon Forum delivered real well today. And praise be to the eternal names of Asada Shakur and Baba Heru. May you live in our memories for generations to come. Peace and prosperity to each and every one of you. Ashe. Ashe yo.
Sorry.